Hey there, it's Hessaneya. So fun story about that. If you haven't watched it already, I do have a whole video, real short, kind of explaining why my name is Hessaneya and my YouTube channel is called that. I made that back when I first started doing videos like 5 years ago. So I'm gonna put the link in the description if you want to go check that out. I'll basically go everything again anyways, but there's that. But instead of Hessaneya today, who, just briefly, is a D&D character that I play with my husband and his cousins. She's she's about 25 years old. She's very strong, very agile, very fast. She's who I am and also who I aspire to be. She, just is really cool and is brave and bold, and that's what I want to be. And that's what I'm trying to be, brave and bold, and especially in doing videos and stuff. She has a little sister who I created, whose name is Hessaneya. See, the Nea is that family name, which Hessaneya goes by Hessa normally. But don't call Hessaneya, but Sheila. She doesn't like that. Hessaneya is Hessaneya is only 13 years old. And like Hessaneya is who I am and who I want to be, Hessa is who I used to be. She's very sweet and innocent and happy-go-lucky, wants to see the best in everything and everyone. She's also very naive, and that means that she can be hurt kind of easily. She's pretty cool too, obviously still a cat kind of person. She's a fire mage, but not like your typical kind of fire mage with just like fireballs, fire blasting or whatever. She uses a gun and shoots fire bullets and other things like that, fire traps and whatever. And she wears a tunic and like instead of a mage's cap, she wears a sun hat. Anyway, she's just adorable. But yeah, Hessa went on a journey to find Hessaneya when Hessaneya kind of disappeared from their home or whatever. And if you really want to get into it someday, Draco and Celeban and myself will have to really go in and dive into that story because it's actually pretty cool. I'm not creative enough. I just get to play along, but the stories that they have created are amazing. So Hessa went to find her sister, and along the way, she's met amazing friends. She has finally found Hessaneya, and that was exciting and stuff. It's interesting trying to play both at once because the one's so more like mature and knows more about the world, and the other's so young and innocent and fresh and whatever. But Hessa is who I used to be. I grew up in a very sheltered and protected home. My mom and dad, my older brother, and my older sister, and I'm the youngest. And didn't know until I was a little bit older, but that was actually my half-brother, and that kind of caused some friction in the family sometimes. And me and my sister... So me and my brother are 7 years apart, and then my sister is 3 years older than me. Well, my brother and sister, they get along just fine when we were growing up, and I was just a little snotty brat. But I was also, I try to be kind and sweet and that whole innocence thing, and definitely the happy-go-lucky, not a care in the world, I tell you what. But we were raised in church, and I went to a small private school, and I loved it, and I thrived in that environment. Not everybody does. And I get that, and I do recognize some of definitely the drawbacks of that. Because I tell you what, when I became an adult and, got pregnant, got married, life hit me in the face, and I was not ready for it. But when I was younger, I was 5 years old when I accepted Christ as my Savior. And I remember being in my bed and talking to my mom about it, and she got to lead me to Jesus, to have him in my heart. And I was so excited to have Jesus in my heart. I told everybody, I tell you what. And I got baptized, and I started singing on stage. So I was 6 years old the first time that I sang on my church stage. So singing and performing is kind of in my blood a little bit. And then, we're growing up, we get older. My sister went to the same school as me, but our brother did not, for whatever reasons. He went to public school, and that kind of put some differences in between us. But something that I really kind of appreciated about it later on is that my brother used to challenge my thinking all the time, because I grew up at church and school. I was always told to think this way, and this is how it goes, and you can't stray from that. And he'd be like, but why? Or what do you think about this situation? Like, one question he brought to me, which, remember, there's a 7-year difference. So he's talking to me, he's like 17 years old and I'm only 10. And he drops this question on me. Was it right for the U.S. to drop the atomic bombs on Japan? That's a hard question. Take a minute and think about that. Seriously, think about that. Those atomic bombs killed so many people at once and caused massive radiation and damage and stuff that they really are still feeling the effects of now. Was that right? It did end the war, and that's kind of what I had been taught, was that and I still kind of lean in that direction. But I didn't appreciate that loss of life, that's what I said at first. I was like, but it ended the war. More people would have died. They were killing, the U.S. soldiers. And my brother was like, no, the people of Japan didn't necessarily want to be in the war. It was really the military and the emperor at the time. And I was like, oh, so innocent people got killed? Yeah. Innocent people got killed. If you didn't know that, you need to go check your history. Innocent people got killed more than I would say the military people, And I didn't appreciate that loss of life. And I do know, in the long term, if you want to talk about it that way, if the war had continued, then there would have been so much more loss of life and stuff. But you have to recognize that loss where it is and how it's still affecting them to this day. But yeah, 17-year-old brother asking 10-year-old me that question. And I was like, why does he keep, and he'd ask me stuff like that all the time, and he'd ask me stuff to challenge my faith. Why do I believe that God created the world? So it really challenged my thinking on, creation versus evolution, and how does that work out? And you know what? They're both based on faith, because no one actually saw any of it actually happen, or if the ones who did see it are dead now, so we can't actually ask them. Even the creation story, which I do believe in creation, and I do think that there's evidence to support it. Very strongly, I believe it. And even the Bible, Genesis, Adam and Eve, they didn't write Genesis. Moses wrote Genesis. That is years and years later. Anyways, but yeah, just those kinds of things, he would challenge me, make me think, and to this day, I really appreciate that. But my younger self was very confused, that naivety, but I still wanted to see the good, and I still wanted to try to do the best that I could to answer his questions. So, on his 21st birthday, he had gone to another state with a friend to take care of something, and I remember me and my sister, my mom, my grandma was over. We all called him and we sang happy birthday over the phone. And then he got killed in a car accident on his 21st birthday. No fault of his own. He wasn't the one driving. It wasn't the person who was driving's fault. Somebody hit them, T-boned them, and he died. And I had to face the harsh reality of, we're not invulnerable. We're not invincible. He was supposed to be on his way home, He was, a lot of stuff had happened, and he was working to turn his life around. He was in the National Guard, and he was planning on, doing journalism stuff, and his life was gone in an instant. And that hit me really hard. Hit my sister really hard, because like I said before, she was a lot closer to him than I was at that time. Because of that, though, now me and my sister, you've seen her before in my videos, we are so tight and we love each other so much. But it took our brother dying for that to happen. And it also made me had to look at my faith again. So when I was 13 years old, a few months later, I kind of like rededicated my life to God. Like, I was saved and I trusted Jesus as my Savior when I was just a child, 5 years old. But at 13, after my brother had died, I was like, you know what, God? I'm going to live my life for you. Like, I'm not just going to claim you and, call myself a Christian, but I actually want to have like a true, strong relationship kind of thing. And so, you start moving on. Even before that, though, I'm going to head and backtrack a little bit to kind of get sort of to the point of the video, I guess. But back when I was 8 years old, we had missionaries at our church. I remember it so clearly. But they were a younger couple, like in their 20s, and they were missionaries to Ethiopia. And they went through like some statistics and stuff, and they were like, most of the missionaries in Ethiopia, which is a country in Africa, if you don't know, are very old. And they were like dying out kind of, or retiring because of like health or whatever reason. And it's like, there's all these people in Ethiopia, especially young people, who aren't being reached. We need young people to go and be missionaries. And that really touched my little 8-year-old heart. And that was when I first was called by God. I'm like, you know what? When I grow up, I'm going to be a missionary. So that's kind of always been my goal ever since then. And then just all of these processes from my brother challenging me, asking me these hard questions, to him then, years later dying, and me rededicating my life where I wanted to have a stronger, an actual relationship with God. But all in all, like, still being innocent and protected and carefree. I used to have a life motto, live a carefree life in God. And I should still live that way. I have a little bit harder time living that way. I have allowed worries and things to come into my life, depression, as I've kind of mentioned before. But I still, another phrase that I used when I was like in high school was, Christ is the rock of peace in the middle of this storm called life. So I can stand on that. But yeah, just continuing my testimony, my story. Growing up, got closer with my sister. In fact, because of my relationship with my sister, that is actually when I first had my first bout of like real depression. My sister eloped, and she didn't tell me. It was right after, literally like 3 days after she graduated from high school. She eloped with her boyfriend at the time, and that hurt. Like, that hurt some, and we've talked about it. So it's not like this is gonna be new to her because she watches my videos. But I remember being so down and sad, and then, so that was obviously the beginning of summer. We get all the way through summer, and we're starting school again, and again, very clearly, I'm in class one day, like a study hall, and one of my friends turns and looks at me, and he's like, "Sarah, why don't you smile anymore?" And that like kind of snapped me out of it. I was like, dang. First off, someone noticed. Secondly, I smiled so much before that it was to be noticed that I wasn't smiling. So that kind of shook me out of that, and I was able to bring myself out of that, and I was doing fine or whatever. And again, my relationship with my sister, it was just fine, again. And then high school keeps going. I do sports. I do track one year, and I get into the best shape of my life. I felt so good. I was so confident in myself and how I looked and how I felt. Like, I just felt like I could own the world again, and kind of feeling a little bit vulnerable again. And that's, I had met my now husband. And I wanted to be his friend first, because he was someone who was a friend or tried to be a friend to everybody else and to like listen to them. And I was like, you know what? You need someone to listen to you, and I'm going to be that for you. And so we were friends first. And then there was a day that he called and was like, I really need you. Something has happened and I really need to be with someone and talk to them. Can you come? And my parents didn't want me to go at first, but I talked him into it, and I met him over at a Steak and Shake. And he had really big hair, and he had this big beard and stuff, but he had shaved, and like his hair had been cut or whatever, and he had a hat on. And when he walked in, I was like, whoa. It was the first time that I ever thought of him in a, wow, he's attractive kind of way. There was definitely a spark there. He told me later that that day, that evening, he had tried to call everybody he could think of, and nobody was coming and nobody was listening. And he said that the first guy who would come and listen was going to be like his friend for life. And then the first girl who would come and listen, that's who he was going to marry. Well, that was me. And hey, we're married now. So it worked out, kind of in the end there. But it was just kind of interesting. So we started dating, and it was good. Life was good. We went to church together. I went into, that was the summer between my junior and senior year. So I was going into my senior year of high school, big plans. I wanted to go to college, be a missionary, or maybe not go to college, be a missionary. There was a lot to that too. Fun stuff. But eventually later on, I turned 18. Draco was 3 years older than me, so he was already, a legal adult. But as soon as I turned 18, we started having sex. So for months, that would happen. And it was, for a young person, and it was so exciting and whatever, and we're keeping it a secret, shh, kind of thing. And deep down, I knew that it's not really something that I wanted to do, that I felt wrong in doing this. But, he actually proposed to me twice. The first time was over Christmas break, and he had a ring and everything. And he gave it to me. Obviously, I said yes. I wanted to marry him. And the only person that I told at that time was one of my grandmas. And she was happy for me, but also a little bit concerned for me, which, I kind of understand now, but she loved me. She loved him. So anyways, later on, I'm about to go on my senior trip, and I'm feeling a little different. Something's off. I think I'm pregnant. So decide, obviously we're not going to tell anybody right now. I don't even know if I am or not. I go on my senior trip, come back, do the test, and it's got one really dark line and one really, really light line. So he almost doesn't believe it. So we go to my doctor and have a test done, and lo and behold, yes, I am pregnant. I am pregnant before I'm married, which it goes against my personal beliefs. I am pregnant, and I go to a very conservative private Christian school. I am pregnant, and I am a member of my church's praise team. So I'm up on stage every week singing and leading these people in worship. That was a very scary, terrifying time in my life. I knew that if people found out at like my school and stuff, that I wouldn't be allowed to go to my graduation. And I didn't know what would happen at church or what people would think about me. But his mom knew, because she went with us to the appointment. She was super excited. She was like, "Yay, I'm gonna have grandkids!" And oh my gosh, I love my mom so much. Well, I say my mom, his mom. I love my mom too, but we'll get to that. But I felt so guilty that she knew, but that my parents didn't know. It's like, I can't keep it secret. I've got to tell them, you know? So after church one day, we asked them if they want to go to lunch with us. And so we go to Steak and Shake. It was really a go-to back then for us. And I pulled out my prenatal pills and I put them on the table. And my mom was like, "Who are those for?" And I said, "Me." And I took one. And that's how we told them. And I was just like, please, please, please don't tell anyone, at least not yet. Because I still have like a week and a half of school and I want to be able to go to my graduation. That didn't happen. People were told. Got pulled into the office. Lots of talks. I did not go to my graduation. I wasn't allowed to walk. Whatever you feel about that, one way or the other, whether it was right or wrong, don't really care to hear about it right now. It happened. They highly recommended that I don't even go so people don't ask questions. And so I didn't go at all. We went and had a dinner instead at that time for me to try not to think about it. And that is something that I actually really regret. I should have gone to my graduation, even if people asked questions, whatever. Like, they were going to find out anyways. But that's beside the point now. Life goes on. And then, of course, obviously, my school was connected with my church. So my church knows, and, you know, stuff happens there. I'm not allowed to sing in the praise team right now. We tell the congregation that we're pregnant and we, you know, made this mistake and all this, whatever. Again, however you feel about that, wrong or right. It happened. Personally, no, I don't agree with it. The reasoning behind it, I think, was skewed. But like I said, it happened. Life is moving on, you know? I had done, for my senior year, we had a class called Family Living, and one of the projects we did was a wedding project. And so I had already planned a wedding. So I just used a lot of that stuff from that project to plan our actual wedding, and we did that in 3 months. I graduated in May. We were married August 13th. That is our anniversary. Low budget, but hey, we did the right thing. We were married. We loved each other anyways. One of the things we kept saying was that we're already married before God. We just hadn't signed the papers. Like, so we're married and we're doing okay. And I'll probably stop there for my narrative for now about my testimony. Obviously, things have happened since then. I was 18 years old. I turned 19 in October, had our daughter in December when I was 19 years old. So a kid having a kid, you know. She is one of the, I will say this, she is one of the best things to ever happen in my life. And I love her very, very much. And I can't imagine my life without her. God knew what he was doing when he gave her to us, to me. So I went from, full circle here, being Hessaneya, Hessa, this young, bright-eyed, naive, joyful, carefree girl, to a more hardened, world-wise, older sister type, Hessaneya. And I portray those feelings in when I play D&D. But it's just cool for me to have that where I can kind of revert back to being Hessa when I'm playing her character. And that's a good place to be. And I need to, in my own life, be there a little more often, especially that part where I'm carefreeing God. You know, I mean, God's not so much a part of the D&D, but he's definitely a part of my life. So anyways, I know this was kind of long and rambling, but I wanted you to get to know more about me. And then also, as I mentioned, when I was 8 years old, wanted to be a missionary. That is why I do videos. This is a small way for me to reach out. And since I'm not in another country, that you know of, haha, I can, who knows who's going to see this and who could it touch and impact and hopefully inspire maybe a little bit, to not be scared, to share their own testimony, their own stories. And then in my videos I do like cover songs and stuff for, most of those are worship songs and Christian songs, and I'm trying to get God's message out there, his message of hope and his love, that, no matter who you are or what you've done, even if you get pregnant like I did when you're in high school, like, who knows? God loves you, and he wants you to be a part of his family, and he has plans for you. Your plans might get all shaken up and messed up, but the saying goes, if God closes the door, he's going to open a window, kind of thing. But yeah, that's me, Hessaneya, and a little bit of Hessaneya too. Bye.